I'm Victoria from Biblio Lifestyle, and you're listening to the Reader's Couch podcast, the show that will help you bridge the gap between living a full and busy life to one where you're reading, learning new things, and having fun. Today on the couch, I'm so excited to welcome author Jenny Colgan to talk about her School by the Sea series. The School by the Sea series opens with book 1 entitled Welcome to the School by the Sea. It is the beginning of the new series, which opens with a captivating story set at a quaint English boarding school by the sea. And this story follows Maggie, a new teacher eager to leave her mark, and some of her students. And we see them navigate the challenges and joys of life at Downey House. Book 2 in the series, Rules at the School by the Sea, takes a look at teacher Maggie Adair as she enters her second year at Downey House. We see her in this novel facing personal challenges which include thoughts about her colleague, David, despite being engaged to her boyfriend, Stan. We also get to see more from headmistress Veronica as she confronts a secret from her past. In Book 3, Lessons at the School by the Sea, we see summer brings passion and challenges to the school. First, the school year ends amid scandal, and we see teacher Maggie Adair grappling with feelings for her colleague David, which is jeopardizing her engagement. Meanwhile, students Fliss, Alice, and Simone face their own struggles after long summers at home. And the new school year promises fresh challenges for everyone at the school. And then Book 4, Studies at the School by the Sea. We see Maggie thinking about her future at Downey House, and we see her torn between her love for teaching and her colleague David, along with the pull of her Scottish hometown, and we see the students preparing for graduation. So listeners, if you want to add some back-to-school vibes to your reading list, then the School by the Sea series and this episode is just for you. But before we get into the episode, pretty please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, leave the podcast a 5-star rating, and write me a review if you love the show. This is a great way for you to show your support. I'm forever grateful for it, and it really does help the podcast grow, get new opportunities, and find new listeners. We also have a new feature where you can text me directly. So click the send me a text link in the show's description and tell me your thoughts on this episode, if you've read any of the books in the School by the Sea series, or if you're a fan of Jenny Colgan, I'd love to know. Pretty friends, thanks in advance. And now onto the episode with author Jenny Colgan. Hi friends, welcome again to the Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me to talk about her School by the Sea series is author Jenny Colgan. Hi Jenny, welcome to the Reader's Couch.
Hello, it's lovely to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you on. I'm really excited to talk about the books in the School by the Sea series. Before we get going though, you have a new book out in the series, Book 4, entitled Studies at the School by the Sea. How have you been feeling about this whole series? Also, you having this new one out. What has the reception been like? But also, how are you feeling?
Do you want the whole story? Because it's quite long. So, when in about 2007, I wanted to read a boarding school book because I had grown up with them and I had loved them. And apart from Harry P, which I do love, there wasn't a lot. But I wanted something that was more as well about the teachers as well as about the kids. I wanted to read Mallory Towers again. And no one was doing it, so I thought, fine, I'm going to write it. And so I wrote the first one, and my publishers loved it. And we decided to put it out under a different name, for reasons which have long escaped history. And do you know what? It's so funny. Book people loved it. Librarians loved it. Teachers loved it. But it didn't really break through into a broader audience. So we did one, and then we did another one. And the second one finishes on a huge cliffhanger. And after that, we thought, oh, you try these things. People like them, people don't, whatever. And we wandered away from it. And then we started getting mail, like proper letters, addressed to the pseudonym, saying, I've been combing the obituary pages. Is this right or dead? Or somebody would be like, I'm going in for an operation. Could you just let me know what happens after the cliffhanger, just in case? It wasn't widely read, but the people who read it were really quite into it. And I wrote another 2, during which time, because I'm writing about young adolescent girls, being 11 in 2006 and being 14 or 15 up until now, I think they're about 16 in 2022, is a completely different experience. So we've left it and come back, and every time we do another one, we pick up a little bit more of people coming on board. So it's been absolutely lovely. But goodness me, yes, it's weirdly, when I have to go back to look at the first one in the series to write the new ones in the series, it's about as long ago to us as Mallory Towers was to me.
Here's the thing. I love the Mallory Towers book. So when you said that, I was like, yeah, makes sense. Absolutely. Because I adored those books. But I'm excited that you have a teacher at the center, and we have lovely students that we're getting to know. So we have our beloved literature teacher, Maggie. We have some students, Alice, Simone, Fliss. For listeners who aren't familiar with the series, so they're being introduced for the very first time, tell us about what they can expect in book 1. So let's start at the beginning with Welcome to the School by the Sea. What can readers expect in book 1?
Maggie she teaches in quite a rough school in Glasgow, and she moves to this very posh boarding school, like you say, very like Mallory Towers. So that's her. She's got a fiance in Glasgow, and she moves towards the school with a lot of different types of students from the types that she knows. So we have Fliss, who's a very anxious, blonde, middle class, no, she's not middle class, is she? She's well off, she's at private school. Is it the girl? Then we've got Alice, who's international rich and fabulously jaded and wealthy. We have Simone, who is the scholarship girl. Now, when I was first writing Simone all those years ago, so difficult for writers. We're always looking for good names. And I wanted her to be from Eastern Europe, and I plucked a name I had heard associated with a famous trial. So in the first 2 books, Simone's surname is Kardashian, before the Kardashians. And nobody ever mentions, oh my goodness, your name is Simone Kardashian, because I just always thought it was a pretty name. Anyway, so we've now, that's the only thing we change when we go back and we look at bringing the new copies out. The one thing we did change was we changed Simone's surname from Kardashian to Pribitic, which is also a nice Armenian name. So she's a scholarship girl. She finds everything terribly confusing. And then in amidst that trio of students, we have a rotating cast of people that have to come in and share the dorm, for better, for worse. We also have David, who is Maggie's opposite number in terms of it being an English teacher, but he teaches in the boys' school, who she finds terribly beguiling. And we have a variety of teaching, I should say.
Yes, and lots of things happening in that first book. I think it was a great kickoff, let's say, to the series. Really enjoyed just getting to know them in the beginning. But then we have book 2, which is Rules at the School by the Sea. Tell us about what happens in that one.
I mean, what I'm doing is the books follow the academic year. So they're in 3 parts. There's autumn and Christmas and spring term. And of course, every year the girls get older and face new challenges, whether it's to do with boys. It's been really weird writing in a pre-smartphone era, because I now have a child who was not born when I started writing this series, is now 15, my only daughter. And it's, the kind of smartphone generation thing hadn't really hit when I started writing these girls. And it's really interesting to see how much has changed. For example, when I started writing, there was a kind of general assumption that you would have a girls' school and you would have a boys' school and everyone was cool with that. Whereas, of course, now everything is a lot more mixed, and you wouldn't necessarily expect a child to definitively stay at one school or the other school. So it's really interesting as the girls get older and the characters get older. It's because I write them so infrequently, it's interesting to see just how teenage life evolves. And I will tell you, Victoria, I don't think it's getting a lot easier.
No, not at all. See, often when I'd hear people like, oh, I want to be 16 again, I want to be 21, I'm like, no, absolutely not. I would not want to go back to those years. And doing that today, it's quite difficult. One, on the parenting side, but also I just would not want to be a teenager in the world today. I truly wouldn't. I wouldn't want to be in school. I think I would find it incredibly terrifying. It was terrifying as it was before. before, but I felt it was less pressure, don't you think?
I absolutely think that. I see it actually even more so with my boys, whereby you grew up and you went to college and you got a job, and now you're competing for a good job with every other living human being on the face of the planet, which didn't exist. I was worried about my daughter, but she's a much calmer cat. She's got a lot of her dad in her. My husband's an engineer. She's she's quite good at it. But the idea that you could have crap at home, that at school, that would then follow you home in your pocket, seems to me terrible, just absolutely disastrous. And I think there's no doubt it is disastrous. So, even if you were having a rotten time at school, you could still come home and you'd be home and watch the telly and eat a sandwich. And, whereas now it's everywhere. Those other people are everywhere. And it's
100%. And the thing is, what I think I loved is if something happened at school, say today, by tomorrow, everyone's forgotten for the most part. You might have a little teasing the next day, but I promise it would not last beyond 3 days at most if it was just really terrible. So
yeah, and now it's on film.
Yeah, it's on. Oh my gosh. It's lots of pressure. But what I will say, book 2, what I enjoyed in book 2 was seeing more of the headmistress. So for me, that was a joy, seeing her story come around. She had to deal with some things. It was also seeing Maggie dealing with her personal challenges as well. And of course, the dynamics with the students. So I loved having that volley. And then there was book 3, which... again, new school year, but you really, I felt, see Maggie, I think, in book 3 struggle the most with her feelings for David, because she, at that point, I think she was engaged by book 3. Just seeing her struggle with that, but then also the students dealing with their struggles after spending long summers at home, and they're back after for a fresh school year. But I just remember seeing Maggie kind of deal with her feelings in book 3. That was one of the most standout things, because I love Maggie, so I'm very attached to what's happening in her life.
Oh, thank you. That's nice. I think, also what came up was really something I'd never questioned before I had my own children. And when I was in France, nobody sends their children to private school because the local schools are very good, whereas that's not the case in Britain. The local schools can be absolutely horrendously bad. It was really the whole morality of it. So by book 3, you start to see the kind of questions of, she's got a family back in Glasgow at bad school. She's a good teacher. Maybe she shouldn't be teaching these privileged girls with ponies and things like that. But the love triangle is a big thing. And originally Stan, who is her old school boyfriend, was quite a minor character. And then he's grown in because he is who he is. He's completely authentic. And she's got this whole new vista of possibilities opened up to her. And it's difficult, isn't it, as you get older?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I think in this latest Studies at the School by the Sea, book 4, listeners, I really felt Maggie asking those questions about, should I be here, this posh boarding school, or should I go back to Glasgow? So I felt more of that pull in this one. But also, the girls are getting ready to graduate. So, of course, graduation is a big, big deal. I don't have fond memories of graduation, if I'm going to be very honest. I was just like, because, I don't know, I just wasn't a fan, because I knew I was going to be at the same school anyway for sixth form. So it was just like, okay, you graduate, you're graduating, I guess, the what do you call this now? The high school portion. But for me, it was just like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be here for 2 more years. What was the big deal? And then I had friends who weren't graduating. I remember that. So I wasn't too pleased. But my mom, she insisted. She was like, no, you have to. I think my best graduation was uni. But yeah, I had friends leaving. And I just remember, not being too pleased about it. But
this is incredibly interesting to me, which is how I could tell you almost nothing about my 30s. How strong our memories of school are, particularly senior school. How incredibly vividly you can remember whatever your skirt was made of and whatever the shoes were. If I said, what shoes did you wear for your 40th birthday, you'd have trouble remembering.
I can tell you right now, I wanted American shoes. I wanted Skechers. My grandmother would go to New York.
Just to get your shoes? Wow,
yeah, because my aunt lived there, and my grandmother, she'd go to New York, she'd go visit, she'd do that in the summer. And I would draw, I kid you not, I would have to draw my foot and mail it. She would take one with her, but because she would go away for a month sometimes. And she'd say, you might have grown a bit. Draw on a cardboard piece of paper, cut it out, mail it to me. So I get it before you leave, because I couldn't, there was no other way. That was the way. So I wanted American shoes. I wanted Skechers, and that's what I wore. Absolutely. I remember that.
It is. It's, I suppose, because you're going through a lot of things for the first time, but the vividness of adolescence really is quite something, and how much of it we retain when everything else gets a little fuzzy around the edges. So when you try, and I have children of my own who are they're older now. And yeah, it is really interesting to think you're doing this for the first time, and first time they get to hang out on holiday, and how exciting it is. You're always trying to capture a little bit of that.
Yes, absolutely. Essentially, in book 4, we'll see the girls graduating. We'll see what's happening next, what's their next adventure. And on that note, you were telling me that there are 2 more books in the series. So what can readers look forward to if they've been caught up, if they've been reading along? What can they look forward to in the next 2 books?
Yes, well, they're not quite graduating. They're doing what we call GCSEs, or in Scotland we call them. Yes. So that's your junior exams, and then you have 2 years in England to sit your senior exams. So they're not gone yet. We don't have different schools for that. You're at the same school, or depending where you are, the same school from when you're 11 to when you're 18. So they're all coming back and carrying on. But the big resolution will really be in the looking at what's happening in the romance and what's going to happen there. Goodness, I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I'm quite tempted to leave it another 10 years to start the next one. But
no, you can't wait that long.
And also the other thing that's difficult, and you'll know because you've read the series, is there's a connection, a long ago connection that the headmistress has with a Russian man that's explored through the first 3 books. And then the last book, I simply couldn't bring myself to do it for obvious reasons. And whilst there is an end to that story, I'm not sure it's quite the time to write it. There's ridiculous things that get in author's way, geopolitics. Yeah, but I have to say, it's a really strange sensation to write a series that has, although so far there's only 4 books in it, it's been running for nearly 20 years. It's really odd that it grows and changes with you.
Absolutely. I'm excited for the next 2. Yep, really looking forward to them. Can't wait to see what happens next. Again, I'm very invested in the faculty as much as I am in the girls. Although I have to say, I do pay attention more to the teachers. I for sure care about them greatly. But you've also written so many books. I think my first book by you was one of the Cupcake Cafe books.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Those were one of, my early, when I think of you, I think of the Cupcake books. That's where I started. I've skipped some in the in-between, but you also have a Scottish bookshop series. I think I read one book from that one. You also have the beach one. There's a beach, what's it called? A beach bakery. Yeah, you have the beach bakery ones. And then you have tons of standalone novels. So my recent standalone from you was the Christmas bookshop, which I think was 2 years back. Or is it? Yeah, I think it's 2 years back. Really just, and there's so many others. Question number 1 is, do you have a timetable for what you write next? And then question number 2, I feel as a reader, we know a Jenny Colgan book when we see it, because you have certain trademarks to your books. I think they're all very cozy. They have feel-good tones to it. I just think they're cozy. They're inviting. I know when I'm reading a book, even if someone were to rip off the cover. So what are the similarities between your books? What are the differences? But also, what does your writing life look like? Do you have a timetable? And how do you know what's next?
I mean, we have a schedule of, obviously I tend to write some books that hit in the summer, and then every couple of years I like to write a book around Christmas time that'll come out the following Christmas. So I can't really write those in the summer. It doesn't work very well. So yeah, we talk. When I say we here, I mean my publishers, my agent. I have an agent in New York and an agent in London, and publishers, and we talk about what might be interesting to do. It's funny, this word cozy came up a few years ago when Richard Osman started, and I'd never heard it before. And I write quite a lot about refugees and child loss and things, so I do take it as a compliment, but I always find it a little surprising. I think I started off as a comic writer. That's what I wanted to be, and that's in the kind of Helen Fielding kind of stable. And so I think fundamentally what I'm always trying to do is be funny and make myself laugh and hopefully make other people laugh. I've always seen it from that perspective. And after that, I like romance. I like animals, and I like writing children. So I guess, and then of course the sense of place is important, whether it's Scotland or Cornwall, or more Scotland these days, I think, because I live here which I didn't. I lived in France for a long time. So I feel very kind of part of the furniture here. So that's what I'm looking for, is a kind of mood to go in. And I feel very strongly also, particularly these days when the news is just so grim, that I really would very much like you to feel better after you've read one of my books instead of worse. That's my plan.
I think that's why I return to your books time and time again. I haven't read them all. I have a lot of backlist to read.
I'm very nobody's read them all. I'm ridiculously prolific. I don't even think I'm that prolific. I don't think a book and a half a year and nothing else at all is a teacher. But yeah, nobody's read them all.
I can't say I've read them all, and I'm a completist. I love to say, okay, I've completed this author, I've completed that author. I'm still I'm still in the hay with lots of other authors. But what I will say is, like I said earlier, if someone rips the cover off your books, I know it's your book just because of the feel. And I love knowing that when I need that comfort, I can just grab one, because we're going to get that cozy feel, like I said earlier. We get those quaint settings. We get those feel-good moments. We get the friendships. We get the family. We get humor, by the way, which we need humor. And there's humor in this book and the school series as well, and just all your books. So for that, I, for sure, eternally grateful. Looking forward to the other 2 books in the School by the Sea series. But are you working on any other books for this year, or what's next on your desk right now?
I am nearly finished a book for next year, which is the first time I've really taken on an older kind of protagonist. She's in her 50s, and I'm having an enormous amount of fun with that, and just I got very tired of kind of menopause lit, so I wanted to write something that actually celebrates the fact that humans don't change very much. You don't feel terribly different as you get older. You feel exactly the same. You're just a bit annoyed about the quality of your skin. So I am writing about that, and then after that, I'm going to do something really fun about people going to sort out a library and getting trapped. And it's going to be really silly, but fun and very romantic.
Really exciting. At least we know you're writing lots and lots of books, which I think is just great. It's fabulous. So we always have something to look forward to. But I want to know about your reading life. So tell me about the last book or books that you finished reading that you'd now recommend.
The absolute best thing I read recently, which is coming out pretty soon, is called Enlightenment, and it is by Sarah Perry, who wrote a very successful book called The Essex Serpent, that you may either have read or you may have seen. There was a very good adaptation of it. And this is her new book, and it sounds awful. Honestly, it's about comets, when comets visit. So it's 3 times a comet visits the UK. It's set in Britain. And you look at the characters when the comet comes back. And I thought, this is going to be gimmicky, and I wasn't sure I was going to like it. And I fell madly in love with it and cried and cried. It's great. The other thing that is good is the new David Nicholls is coming, which is about rambling, and it's called You Are Here. And it is quite rambling, but that's all right. If you watched One Day recently, you'll know his style and you will love it, I think. And then I am reading The Wager, which is the great nonfiction. I love sad boat. I'm a big sad boat stan. So it's a classic of the sad boat genre, where a bunch of brave, hearty young men got on a boat and terrible things happen. And the ship is called The Wager. It goes looking in the 18th century for some Spanish gold, and all sorts of horrible experiences rain down upon them.
I can tell you, I enjoyed The Wager. I love anything nautical, maritime, whatever.
Yeah, you're a sad boat fan too.
Yeah, so funny you say that. I was recommending, oh gosh, now I'm drawing a blank on the book. I'll probably remember as I'm talking about it. It's a book about some fishermen so this is based in America, and Montauk. Yes, okay, so that's the name. The book is The Lost Boys of Montauk. So it's a bit tragic, yes, and the author is a journalist, and she really did lots of investigating into this, but it's how a commercial fishing vessel, I think there were 4 or 5 men aboard, they disappeared when a nor'easter hit them between Montauk and another one of those islands out there, Montauk Point and one of the Long Island islands out there. But anyway, so they disappeared. Of course, they never recovered any of the men. And we learn about their backstories and their interviews with the family and just other crew members from other boats. And then you learn their whole backstory and then how that area has evolved into an area that is super wealthy, because this happened, I think, in the 80s. And now, my Lord, it's incredibly wealthy. It's one of those posh seaside towns up in New England. So anyway, yes, I love that book. So if you love those sad books, maritime books, Lost Boys of Montauk, I think it came out maybe 3-4 years ago, but I was recommending that just last week. So I enjoyed that. So yes. But what were your favorite books? I know you said Mallory Towers, but what were your favorite books growing up?
I was a very Catholic reader. I would read literally anything. I was a big Charlie and the Chocolate Factory reader and a very disappointed Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator reader, like children finding my first disappointment. I still am a big Little Women fan. What Katie Did and those kind of American, slightly preachy, or Canadian, I guess, for Anne of Green Gables, those slightly preachy moral books. I do have a tendency sometimes, I do notice it in myself, I have to take the moral out. All of the terribly well-behaved women in those books that I liked, or girls. But I love those books, really. And I found during the pandemic, like a lot of people, I stopped reading. I never stop reading, ever. I read every second of the day. And for the first time, I found it hard because you were just reading the news all the time and it was just awful and it was gloomy. And then I found my way back in was Anne of Green Gables. Which, by the way, I had loved growing up and thought was about a girl called Anne, and it's not. It's about a woman called Marilla. Oh my God, I cried. So I found that a way of getting, and I could pretty much recite about half of Little Women to you. I think I just read it over and over again.
Oh, I love hearing that as well. I love rereading books, and I loved hearing that Anne of Green Gables got you out of your reading slump during the pandemic. So yeah, that's awesome. So on the show, we love indie bookstores as much as we love our authors and our books. So share with our listeners some of your favorite local indies.
I would say my favorite in Edinburgh is full of them. There's Rare Birds, which only sells books by women, which is a beautiful shop. There's the Portobello Bookshop, where they're all massive, fabulous party throwers. And what they do is they make a big fuss of people that go and read there. They make sure they get a big crowd in. They've got their regulars. Everybody goes to the pub, and so they've developed it so it really shows you what an indie can do when they're putting the effort in. And I can tell you, by the way, as someone that goes and reads in bookshops, we can tell straight away the second we walk through the door if people care if we were coming or not. And Port always makes a big fuss, and as a result, they get huge people. They get really super famous people will come and launch their books there because they know that they'll get a fabulous welcome and a fabulous crowd. So it's like in a virtuous circle. So Portier, a fantastic shop as well.
Absolutely. And there's no shortage of shops in Edinburgh. Yes, if you end up visiting, for sure, you'll have your eyes and your arms full of books. Mm-hmm. So getting back to your book, getting back to the School by the Sea series. Again, I know we're 4 books in, we have 2 more to go. But what are you hoping readers might think or feel in an ideal world after they've read one or all the books in the series? What are you hoping for?
I think one of my very favourite writers is Eva Ibbotson. And she once said about herself, and she said, I write books for very clever women who have the flu. And I always thought that was such a wonderful description, and I would very much like it applied to me. If you have the flu, I would like to be on prescription with your hot lemon drink and your cold compress and your fluffy slippers. And I would like very much to make you feel better.
I love hearing that because your books for sure do that for me. I think I've said the word cozy a million times, but that's how I feel when I read your books. I feel comforted and I feel cozy. Jenny, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me, Victoria. It's been lovely.
Thank you so much for listening to the Reader's Couch podcast. Please subscribe to the show, share it with a friend, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Until next time, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks again for listening, and happy reading.